right, let's get going here. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody to the Z1 Career Zone monthly industry expert webinar. And very happy to have Jim Doliber here. And we're going to introduce Jim here in just a second. But first of all, as I always do, I just want to give you just a quick update on what's going on with Z1 Career Zone. And, since we last spoke, well, we have actually launched our program to a couple of colleges / universities this past week, and another one here in a couple of weeks. So we're very, very excited about that, and it's going great. Secondly, we finalized an agreement with a large fraternity organization, and we're going to start the marketing of the program first to their alumni group, because as you know, if you've heard me before, is 70% of all professionals either disengaged or don't like what they're working. So they're wanting to bring this program to those alum who could really use it to change their career trajectory and really give them the tools to be able to do that. And then secondly, we're going to do kind of a sponsorship program where we're going to go to alum that are going to sponsor recent graduates who have finished school but have not found any work, which there's a lot of them out there. So that's going to be exciting. We're going to start that at the first of the year. And then lastly, this is pretty exciting for me because I'm a sports fanatic, but we're going to be finalizing several agreements here by the end of the month with organizations that are involved with sports. And as you can imagine, there's a ton of professional athletes, whether it be minor leaguers or even professionals that played in the NFL for a couple, 3 years, that all of a sudden their career ends because of injury or what have you, or they're cut and really don't have anything to help them move on to that next career. So we're very, very excited about that. And last, but certainly not least, we are training additional facilitators for on-demand program, specifically for the sports industry and military industry as well. And that gets underway here at the end of the month. So a lot going on here at Z1 Career Zone, and very excited about that. So I'm going to leave it at that and get to our main topic here, which is Jim. But first, a couple of ground rules. You're going to notice that your mic has been muted, and that's really just to avoid, interruptions and things like that. Keep in mind that we're taking questions throughout this webinar. So just click on the Q&A feature, put your question in there. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A session, and we're going to get to as many of those as we can. And as we've done in the past, if we can't get to them, we'll get those answers out to everybody as well. So send those in at any point in time, and I'll be collecting those. And then lastly, if you haven't done so before, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're on all those social media outlets, and we update our webinar series. We share information, tools, tips constantly all the time regarding careers. So don't forget to do that. All right, so let me introduce to you Jim Doliber is our guest speaker here today. And I got to tell you, I've known Jim for 30 years, something along those lines. And I'll tell you, he has been a tremendous resource to me personally as I was building Z1 Career Zone. I was just, really running by a ton of stuff we were doing. And I can't tell you, and thank you, Jim, enough for the guidance, the information that you gave me throughout. And I would absolutely consider Jim to be probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever known, experienced person that I've ever known as it relates to franchises. Okay. And, but really what he's going to talk about, and yeah, there'll be a focus on franchises, but also about the possibilities for transitions and careers. And you're going to hear him talk about that. The last thing that I'm going to say about Jim, and I was thinking about this, about, if I was going to describe Jim, how would I do that? And first of all, I absolutely put at number one, Jim is really, he lives a life of servicing others. And And I've known Jim for a long time, and I know his professional life, but also in his extra time, the time that he gives to his church, the time he gives to military veterans, time he gives to youth sports, and all this stuff is amazing. I don't know where, Jim, you have the time at all. I don't know where you get that, but it's amazing. And I'd say also describe Jim as, I'd say, hard work is his first name, and I'd back that up with integrity is his middle name. And that's why I'm so honored, Jim, to even know you and be associated with you. And we're going to kick it off really from here. And I'm going to let you and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, Jim, but I'm just going to have you start off by telling a little bit more about your background, really you personally, and take us through that short history of Jim Doliber, and then we'll get into some of the meat of the discussion.
Wow, Jim, it's going to go downhill from here after that introduction. That's impressive. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jim.
I really appreciate that. It's not quite that way. It's nowhere close to that, but thank you, Jim. And our relationship has been 32 years. So yeah, in excess of 30 years. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being along the journey with Jim as he's built this latest company, and also being asked to be one of the experts, as you said, Jim. I don't know about that, but thank you. And it's been great watching all the other wonderful intelligent speakers throughout the year this year, and many more to come. So thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
That's first and foremost. I'm going to take you a real brief history over Jim. I think Jim's already done that for me. So, I grew up, for the most part, born and raised, and spent most of my time in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and then over to Pittsburgh for most of my life, and a true Pittsburgh Steeler and Penguin fan. And I was raised in a middle-class household with a great family of a loving mother and father that were married 66 years. Mother passed away last year. My dad turns 88 on Friday, and just 4 wonderful kids that I was the baby. So of course I got away with everything. And by the time I became a high schooler, I could do anything and never do anything wrong. My daughter would agree with that because she never could do anything wrong. And we got so tired of being parents. She just was allowed to do everything she wanted. But I just had a wonderful, loving family. Gave me the opportunity to really focus in on sports and industrious, job-oriented type things. I had paper routes. I had my own lawn care service. You name it. I was always looking for a way to fill 3 seconds, 3 minutes, or 3 hours of a day and a weekend. And to your point, Jim, I was kind of the Energizer bunny and never felt like there was anything I couldn't do. So it started real young, when I loved to go and make money and also to give back. So that projects me on into my college education at Penn State and on into my professional life, where I got an opportunity to really kind of refine my sales, my leadership skills, my operational skills. And eventually, through a couple careers, I really got to get out to California and get into commercial real estate and do something very independent as an independent contractor. And that really put my feet to the fire in regards to trying to make a dime for our family. That then projected me off into my career. So that's a little bit about my quick upbringing and who I am in my first few years. How's that, Jim?
Yep. Nope. That's great. And I know you've got some very structured philosophies in your life, and I'd really love for you to share that, Jim, because I'm familiar with them, and I think they're powerful.
Yeah. Something. I didn't have a lot of spirituality and religion as I grew up, but a very loving family. But when I finally met my wife to be, Liz, who Jim knows very well, she really brought spirituality and religion into my life. And I live by kind of the power of the threes. starting with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But I also named my company Evolution 3, to establish, to engage, and to elevate. I believe in P3, and prepare and have passion and professionalism. Jim, you've got that. I've heard that 1,000 times,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You got to be. You tell me, what do you have to be to be the top candidate?
You to be top candidate, you better be well liked. You better be prepared, right? And you better be excited about what you're going to do and passionate about what you're going to do.
Right. So I live by that creed, and I talk about professionalism. I've taught my kids this. I always said, dress a little better than most everybody in the room. Look a little better, act a little better, and that'll always serve you right. And that professionalism is so key. Now, Jim, you've seen me in shorts and a t-shirt most of your life, so you don't know that side of me. I'm the bow tie guy in church, by the way. I'm known as the bow tie guy. I own over 70 bow ties. So,
oh my,
anyway.
That's great.
Also, my philosophy when it comes to the threes, I also got that also when coaching. I coached 25 seasons of 4 sports with 3 kids. And I always liked to be the head coach, and always hired somebody that could to really work on the fundamentals. One of the sports I didn't know very well was soccer, but I really enjoyed the triangle and the communication in the triangle. So for anybody that really knows soccer, it's all about having options, not just one option, but at least 2 options. So that really helped me as I came up through the ranks of my career, and helped me understand that, it's good to communicate, not just with one, but maybe a second person, and that constant communication with at least 3 people or another 2 people. I did that a lot in my 25 years with my franchising company that I was with. And I really, really developed that triangle of communicating between the owner, a customer, and the employee, and all 3 communicating, so that there was a real buy-in. So that's it. And then in today's world, as a owner of this career coaching company, I use the client, the coach, me being the coach, and the franchisor, and utilizing a communication between the 3 of us. So that's a little bit about my
no, that's good.
Power of the 3s.
No, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that, Jim. And let's get into more, specifically about your professional career, because you spent a majority of your time in corporate America, right? And
you did
worked with Midas Corporation for a couple of years as a vice president of regional franchising there. Can you just share, what was the responsibility that you had there, and what did you learn through that experience about franchising? And then we're going to kind of move into what you're doing now as well.
Well, a big part of what I did is I really helped small to medium-sized business owners execute on their business plans. Big thing in franchising is you've got the systems, you've got the training, you've got all these resources that are proven. But how do you do it individually when you put the key in the door for the very first time, open the door, whatever that door is, or literal door is, or figurative door is, and what are you going to do? And part of what I did and what my team did was we tried to help execute on those business plans. We tried to help create business plans for success, and tried to help the franchise owners execute on those within the systems. And it was always just such a great, one of the things that I just absolutely thought was such a great thing about franchising is being able to get the light bulb to go off, and then the revenue to start being generated, and things start to really execute, and those dreams being achieved. I could go home, lay my head down on the pillow and say, wow, I was able to do that. Or our team together, we were able to help an individual execute and achieve their dreams. And there's nothing better than that. And
that's outstanding.
That's kind of what I was able to do in my franchising world. Without going into a lot of detail of all the different positions that I held in the company.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna back up a step, and and I want you to share with everybody that's on here, and we got a bunch of people on here and getting, some questions as they're coming in.
Sure.
And I'll be taking a look at those. So, and we get comments. Somebody just said bow ties. I could relate. That's a good one. But anyway, share with everybody the 4 ways that you can make a living. 4 ways you can make a living. Now, we're going to kind of just go step back a minute and then get more into.
Well, great question. I kind of look at it as 4 ways or 4 vehicles that anyone could make a living. There's probably a 5th one, Jim, and I'll just touch on that one.
All right.
Briefly. But there are really 4 ways to make a living. The first one is the job market. It's what, Jim, you focus in on with a lot of what you're doing, the job market. Truly, a position as an employee, government, public-private companies, nonprofits, et cetera. But it's one where you're earning a salary with potential other compensation, some benefits, et cetera. That's one where there's a lot of structure. You may have bosses, many bosses. You may have some control. You may have very little control, depending on the culture. There's a lot of routine. A lot of routine is broken up. There's chances for advancement. There's challenges, and again, there's a pretty set compensation and benefits that can be attributed to one that's in a job as an employee. Some of the things that you don't get, you don't usually get equity unless you get up to the C level, the C-suite. You don't usually get equity unless it's some stock options or something. There are really no guarantees either. In today's world, there are no guarantees. After 28 plus years, my wife was just let go from a company she thought she was probably a career job. There's age discrimination. There's obsolete skills eventually as this world evolves at a breakneck speed. There's a lot of stress to being an employee. There's sometimes a lack of direct impact of what you're doing. Sometimes you get you're kind of the cog of the wheel, and there's not that, who am I impacting? How am I impacting somebody in life positively? So there's risk. And again, our careers in the job market, career jobs now, maybe not. That's one. Any questions on that one, Jim?
Nope. Well said. How about the other 3.5?
Second one is startup. As we know, in the past generation or 2, startups have become very, very popular. Startup, of course, is you're controlling everything. You're the guy starting it up. You're the girl that's starting it up. You own it all. It requires a lot. It requires knowledge. It requires expertise. It requires resources. It requires systems, and you have to develop a model. There's market research. There's equipment, inventory, sourcing. You've got design and layout, depending on what the product or service is. You've got PR, you've got digital marketing, you've got technology, you've got hiring, incentivizing, firing, finance, taxes, legal, compliance, customer service.
Good thing I didn't think of all these things.
Creating the demand. All those things are, either under you or you have to go and outsource them. You have to keep up with the competition in this evolving world. I mean, unless it's something that just has no competition and will never have competition. Jim, if you find one of those businesses, tell me about it. I'm going to invest in it. It doesn't exist. So the evolving world you have to keep up with as an individual. There's not a lot of people you can collaborate with. You may have a board of advisors, which are critical to a startup, but you don't have a lot of people you can collaborate with. You're really kind of collaborating a lot with yourself or your team. High risk and a high potential reward. That's number 2, a startup. Number 3, you can buy a business. You can buy an existing business. You can purchase a book of revenue. You can, you've got a reputation in this business. The reputation may be good, maybe bad, maybe indifferent, but there's a reputation. There's systems, there's employees. You may be inheriting employees, good, bad, or indifferent there too, but you didn't hire them, but you're buying that business. You may be buying inventory and equipment. Is an inventory right, or is it not turning very much? Is the equipment in good shape? Has it been maintained, et cetera? You may have a point of sale system that is great or needs to be upgraded. You may have point of purchase material and marketing and so forth. And you have the opportunity to build equity in a business that you've purchased. Some of the drawbacks are that maybe you bought some blue sky based on some projections out into the future. The revenue stream wasn't there, but you bought on some blue sky thinking you could increase the revenues. The P&Ls, the cash flow, the balance sheet, were they the right ones, or were there two sets of books and the owner had one set of books for the IRS and the owner had another set?
Yeah, it happens.
Was the outgoing owner who's just selling you the business, was he or she the glue that kept it all together, kept the team together, kept the customers coming back? You never know. What needs to be fixed and how much will it cost? And I mean, what needs to be fixed? You can imagine. And then did you buy at the top? Did you buy at the top, or is there still a lot of growth potentials? So, and then the competition. What is the competition and how much more competition's out there? Less risk because you've bought a book of business and there's some definitely upside reward. So that's number 3. So we've got 1, the job market, 2, a startup, and 3, buying a business. The 4th one, Jim, is franchising. Franchising is something, as Jim says, I've been part of for about 27 years. Franchising, can you believe this? There's over 4,200 franchise brands in North America within 80 different segments, 80 different industries. You name an industry and there's franchising in that industry just about. What is franchising? Why is it so positive in my mind? There's proven systems, there's training, there's support, there's marketing, there's technology, there's lead generation, there's the compliance and legal. They've done all their homework. There's the ability to build equity. Here's a good one, franchisee support. You have the opportunity to talk to other franchisees and be supported because they want to make sure that every one of the franchisees succeeds. When a franchisee succeeds, the franchisor succeeds, and more resources come back into the franchising system. There's conferences that you attend. Those conferences aren't just with your fellow franchisees, but you're also with the franchisor brand and all their people. You're there with vendors. There's a visionary typically at the top. It's either the founder or somebody who took over the brand. There's there's somebody who's the operational execution person, kind of the chief operating officer of most brands. Also, another great one is social responsibility. The opportunity to have a franchise brand bring in doing something good for the world and having that social responsibility. Also, field support. What I was part of a lot of my life is having the field support down in your business, helping you execute on your business. And the big key to franchising is you're in business for yourself, but you're never by yourself. And the ZOR, remember the ZOR, the franchisor, I abbreviate ZOR, franchisor, needs for the franchisees to be successful. A great brand will only become a great brand if the franchisees succeed.
Sure.
What are some of the drawbacks? The drawbacks are you follow the plan. You follow the plan. Some people see that as a drawback. You've got to be compliant to ensure the brand can grow, grow the way it needs to grow. And there's some other things that, of course, would lend to somebody that's a little more independent that doesn't like following those processes and complying. Moderate risk with a high reward potential. Those are the 4. The 5th one, Jim, is for those that are really that can take the risk, is investing in the stock market full time or real estate investments. But that's a very small amount. And I would say that one of the 4 others would probably feed your potential to be an investor in the stock market or real estate. So those are the 4, with the 5th being the investing in the markets.
No, that's great. And I think this would be good for people to hear, because you were in corporate America, right? You were involved in franchising. And at the end of the day, you decided to buy a franchise with what you're doing right now in your coaching business and all that.
Yeah.
Specifically for you, why did you go that route versus the other options?
I'm not a very smart person, Jim. You know that.
I know that not to be true,
No,
but
no,
yeah.
I think about it. I go, 25 years. I can go and just take all I learned and steal shamelessly for the most part, steal some of that. When I say steal, I don't mean steal. I mean, I can, I can adopt.
Use what you learned.
Use what you learned. But I still said, no, if I'm going to find something that really hits my sweet spot, and that is helping others grow their business the correct way, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to try to find a franchise brand. And boy, it took me forever, Jim. But I
remember you're investigating and all that. Yep.
Everybody out there, Jim would call me and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm still working on trying to find. How long does this take? And Jim was right. Jim was actually one of the guys that was, and I mean this, Jim, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you. You were one of 3 people in my life that kind of kicked me in the pants and said, it's time to make a decision. You've really looked at some great opportunities. And Jim was one of those people that really helped me understand there's no 100% in life.
Right.
You're going to get to about 80%. That other 20%, you're going to figure out.
Right. Right.
And Jim, you were part of it. You really were.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. And I did not know that. So, did I kick you in the pants? That's funny. Okay. So there's a bunch of people, I can guarantee you this. All right. Is that people aren't different than I was when I was in corporate America, right? And you got these things swirling in your head. You think about going into your own business, you kind of, hear about franchises and all that stuff. And you think, okay, there's, McDonald's out there. Everybody's wealthy that's got a McDonald's. Everybody's got a Dunkin' Donuts, right? Is through the roof. And you hear about all these things, right? And then you hear the other side. You hear people that got into it and found out it wasn't what they thought. So you got the good, you got the bad, and all that stuff, right? And so I guess my question is and you've done this already. So I'm, about talking about the plus and minuses. So I'm going to ask you a little bit different is, if you're evaluating a potential franchise or whatever, what's the key criteria, if you will, that somebody should take a look at? And I mean, I'm sure there's 1,000, but the main ones, what's the absolute must you better do?
You know what? I'll answer that question. I think I will answer the question. I use a word that I heard just recently, just a few months ago. I heard a word called validatable. Is the brand validatable? I started laughing. I go, no way. It's not a word. It's not possible. I looked it up. And of course, you look it up and you'll find a dictionary that shows validatable is a word.
I was going to say it's in Wikipedia.
It's in Wikipedia. Validatable. Validation through verification. Validation through verification. It's real. The questions to ask to gain a clearer picture of the consistency of the brand, the culture, the vision, what they've done in their history to pivot when they faced COVID-19.
Right.
What they did when 9/11 hit, whatever the case may be, the downturn in 2008 and 2009. What did the brand do to pivot? You can get into validation by asking the franchisor a lot of great questions. One of the things that they provide you early on is when you're looking at a franchise brand, they give you an FDD. It's a franchise disclosure document. Within that is the franchise agreement. That FDD is about 250 pages. And if you ever want to fall asleep, I can sit up and tell anybody about FDDs. I can read them in no time flat. I'm an expert in FDDs. It doesn't get me anything, but I know FDDs back and forth. But what's great about the FDD is it is a requirement through the Federal Trade Commission. Okay. There are 23 items in every FDD. There's 4,200 franchisors out there, and they all have an FDD with 23 items. And those items really detail what their obligations are as a franchisor and what the obligations of the franchisee are.
Got
A
you.
lot of it is legalese, but there are 6 or 7 points of those 23 points that are absolutely critical to understand, to really see if a model is a model that you want to pursue.
Okay.
On top of that, Jim, you can contact any franchisee. Wow. You know, people just get blown away and say, what do you mean, Jim, I can talk to any franchisee? Well, you're looking at the franchise. You have every name of every franchisee, their phone number and their email address in the FDD, and contact them and ask them those questions that you've asked the franchisor, but you also want to ask the franchisee. You can contact other franchise models that have small differentiators. You know, take a painting business, for example.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of painting franchise companies out there. You can contact the others and contact franchisees within the other brands to really understand the industry and the differences between the models.
Right.
You can contact customers. You can go and call customers and see what their experience has been with the franchise. You don't have to call just in your local marketplace. You could call anywhere in North America. You could call vendors, suppliers, lenders, marketing agencies, anybody that is connected to the franchise brand. You can validate, and it becomes a very validatable opportunity.
Exercise. Yeah. To do. Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that because, you know, in any of these things, whether it's, you know, the job market or even startups and, you know, or, you know, buy an existing business, that's the fundamental stuff you should do with any of that stuff, really, is doing that validation. And I've been amazed, you know, and I think that's such great advice, because I'm amazed at how many people, you know, I have my recruiting firm and dealt with thousands of people.
Right.
Very few, when they were interviewing with a company, talk to a customer, talk to another person that in their job that they would be doing,
amazing.
You know, and I'm like, this is your career, you know? And so I think that's very real, quite frankly. And I think validatable is a good word for that.
Validatable.
For sure,
Jim, you just touched on something. This is the crux of what I'm doing for a living. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't even discuss this.
Yeah.
And you hit upon it. And that is, the majority of the people don't do that type of validation. Right. And what I found in 25 plus years in my franchising company is some of those just bought into something because their brother or their cousin or their friend bought into one, and they're doing really well. And guess what? I'm smarter than my brother or my friend.
Right.
And I'm going to do great.
If they could do it.
And they don't assess who they are.
Right.
So what really destroyed me is those individuals that didn't do that research, didn't do that really, perspective of who they are, and didn't understand what their skills and abilities, what they liked and didn't like. I'll give you an example of one right now. Just take you off for a minute. Friend of mine wanted to get into a fitness facility. Big, works out, really just, big fitness person, kind of like you, Jim, just all the time in the gym. And
easy.
Just like they, Jim. But all he wanted to do is go, well, why wouldn't I buy it? I'm a bright guy. I can do this. I'm going to buy a gym. And he'd ask me, what do you think? And I go, well, 5 a.m, 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Some of the trainers are a little bit difficult to work with. It's a little bit of what I know, but let me talk you through it. Is this really what you want? Or maintain the passion, and let's look at maybe other opportunities that really kind of fit who you are and what you'd rather have in life. And is it 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, and dealing with trainers that can be difficult, et cetera. He bought the business. This was a few years back, and he suffered, amazingly suffered. And guess what happened to him, Jim? He hated working out. So his one passion,
it poisoned his.
It poisoned him.
Yeah.
He found something else, and of course, he's done well. But anyway, it was really finding this brand,
Yeah.
the Entrepreneur Source, and becoming a coach with the Entrepreneur Source that helped me now achieve my dream of helping people way upstream, right? Way at the top of in Minnesota, where the Mississippi River's got the lakes coming down and forming the Mississippi River as it's a small little creek, and working upstream before they go, you know what? I'm smarter than my cousin. I can do much better by buying a Dunkin' Donuts or a McDonald's or a fitness company.
Right.
That really is the crux of why I'm doing what I do, because I love to get way upstream and work with my clients.
Yeah. So, you hit a couple of things that, you're talking about this buddy of yours, and I could just hear it in the things you're bringing up to him, because you knew him well enough probably to know that you're saying the things 5 a.m. right. You know this guy well and all this stuff. So, and that gets into, the clients that you work with, Jim, because really you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking people and figuring out what is that next step that's right for you, and what are the possibilities, what are you trying to accomplish? And, and all part of that is really understanding them a lot and all that stuff. So how has your prior experiences really, and it goes beyond your job, I think, helped you to be this incredibly valuable resource to the clients you're serving?
Well,
It's a big question, I know, and go in a lot of ways, but
it's a great question. I lived and breathed it as an independent contractor in commercial real estate. I lived and breathed it by, being in almost every field position with a franchise company for 25 years, and spent all those long hours with those franchisees and those that were looking to get into the brand, and spent so much time with them, trying to help them build a business plan, trying to execute on the business plan, trying to get them out of trouble. It really helped me as I looked at this career of coaching, to say, hey, I've got the skill sets, I've got the understanding of what they go through as owning their own business, but also what they go through when they're considering something other than what they're doing. And what's neat about what I do is that I really just take them through these short questionnaires, and really unpack those questionnaires and get down to the roots of who they are, and help them just educate themselves a little better about who they are, and get to a point of clarity, whatever that point of clarity is, Jim.
Whatever it is.
It may be just going back to their job that they're in right now, and going after that promotion, or jumping over to another company in that same industry, or going to a whole different industry, or a startup. I can tell you this, Jim, almost on a weekly basis, I tell a client, guess what? You found your point of clarity. What is it? I never tell them, but they usually say, guess what, Jim? I'm going to do a startup. I go, exactly. So it's not me finding the point of clarity. It's me helping them find their point of clarity. And it's through education, awareness, and discovery of possibilities.
Yeah. No, that's, there's so much in this that, and some of it, I could relate to from doing startups and things like that. And I'll be curious, and I don't know if I've shared this question with you or not. We were talking about this, but I'm curious as to what you'll say is, what holds clients back from achieving their potential as it relates specifically to their careers? And I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I'm really curious to hear what you say about that.
And please protect your audience. I'm not this kind of guy, but I call them the F words. It's the F words. It's fear. It's false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. I'm sure many in the audience know what I mean. They've heard that acronym. It's frustration. I'm frustrated with my current job. I can't go anywhere. Nobody listens to me. I'm frustrated. Family members frustrated with me. I'm frustrated with my family members due to my career and not going anywhere. But it's family, it's friends, family and friends. What do you mean that? That's an F word? Yeah. Family wants the safety. They want the security. Find something secure. Find something safe.
Yeah.
You probably heard that at one point in time,
Hear all of it. Yeah.
Terry, maybe from one of your kids, maybe from one of your really, really good friends who says,
absolutely,
stay where you are.
Yeah.
And you know, you may be able to relate to this, but my father-in-law and mother-in-law have a place in Whitestone, Virginia. You've been there, Jim.
I've been there. Yeah.
At the end of the pier, we throw out crab baskets, crab traps. And crabs go into a crab trap. And by the way, when you get more than 2 crabs in a basket, you can take the lid off the basket. Guess what? They'll never get out. You know why? Because the other crab will pull on the other crab thinking they're helping themselves up, but they're pulling the crab down. So crabs won't get out. So crabs in the basket happen all the time. It's your spouse who says, don't do it, honey. Don't do it. This is too risky.
Yeah.
Don't do it. You're going to take us away from our security and our safety.
Yeah.
And it's the crabs in the basket. Your friends could be that way. Don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
You're afraid that you're going to go and succeed. Yeah. It happens. Friends want to see the best for you, but sometimes it's like, wow, you may succeed.
Yeah.
So crabs in the basket are a term I use a lot. And I'm faced with that a lot. Even in my coaching career now, I talk about it a lot. You're going to have crabs in your basket. And they're going to come from all different angles, and they're going to bring you back down into the basket.
Yeah.
So,
and Jim, that just reminds me of I got to share this example, right? And it's the crabs in the basket. So I was at a big Fortune 100 healthcare company at the beginning of my career, right? Spent 10 years there, 6 different jobs, right? And I remember one of my mentors, right, talked me into leaving and doing a startup, pure startup. And I will tell you, every one of my peers at that company looked at me and said, are you crazy? You're taking 5 steps backward. You're going to go sell again. You're going to do this. You're going to do that.
You're going to leave all this?
Yeah. You're in charge of $500 million worth of stuff, Jim. What are you, nuts? And all I could think about is, no, I'm going to help build a business, right? Totally different. Honest to God, 2 to 3 years later, those same people were calling me, hey, can you get me in? Right? Because we had succeeded and all this stuff. And I'll never forget that lesson. Never forget it. And crabs in the basket. That's a great analogy. And Jim,
the other F word, sorry, Jim, the other F word didn't want to go past it is finances. Many people say, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. But you know what? There's so many different opportunities out there that people don't understand. There's ROBs. You can roll over your 401k with huge advantages. Most people don't know anything about it.
Right.
Everyone thinks you can't touch your 401k. Oh yeah, you can. And you can at a huge advantage. So there's all these different funding options that people just don't understand are available out there to small business owners.
Nope. You're exactly right. Oh yeah, I do. And I love that, that definition of false evidence appearing real, because I think fear is the one thing the number one thing that holds people back, not only their careers, but their personal lives and their relationships and everything else. And man, it's hard to watch, and especially if it's somebody you care about, right? And all those things. So no, that's great. And I'm going to get to this last question, Jim, and then we're going to get to our Q's and A's. And this has been awesome. So how would you summarize today's session? And for the people that are here, right, that are considering, doing something, right, some kind of action or whatever, if they have interest in learning more, what should they do? What should they do from here? And by the way, anybody who's on here, I'm going to make sure that, we provide you Jim's contact information, all that stuff. So if you want to get in touch with them, and we'll make that available. So that's a given. But, Jim, is there anything else that you can add to that?
Yeah. It's nothing new. It's taking the small step. Taking the small step. You can't, you can't eat an elephant all at once. And I don't know who's eaten an elephant, but we've all heard that adage.
Oh yeah.
It's one little bite at a time. There's always going to be barriers. The barriers are excuses. The election. Do you know how many times I've heard the election for people that I'm working with?
Oh yeah.
COVID-19,
Yeah.
holidays, my kids, adversity, life. It just,
Right.
the things that we all experience, they're barriers that can be easily overcome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's taking that first small step to exploring possibilities. It's going back to my 3 E's. Establish a plan starting with the small first step. You know, we've all heard a SMART plan, SMART, right?
Yep. Oh
Be
yeah.
very specific, be very measurable. You can measure it. It's actionable, it's realistic, and it has a time frame on it. I do that with
Yep.
all my clients.
Oh yeah.
Let's start with something small, but let's apply the SMART to it.
Yeah.
So establish the plan, then engage, network, develop your relationships, get out there and network, take advantage of Z1 Career Zone. For everybody on this call, take advantage of Z1 Career Zone. It is an amazing, amazing service. Jim has grown this brand. I've watched it from almost the inception.
Yeah,
and
pretty close.
It's just amazing what Jim has been able to do with it. Come to me. My coaching is free. I can go into that later, but my coaching is free. And give me a call, and I'd be glad to spend 15 minutes with you and help you understand a little bit more about it. But, you know, engage. And then last but not least, elevate, be positive, smile a lot.
I can't wipe it off my face.
That's right. Exactly. Pass it on to others. Pass it on to others. My wife says it all the time. Jim, since you started your business as a coach, you are having a lot of fun. You're working a lot of hours. Didn't think you were going to work that many hours, but you're having fun. You seem to have fun. I go, how can I not have fun? I'm absolutely exposed to some of the greatest people in the world as clients. So I pass that on, and I pass that on in other things that I do at church, with family, with, you know, the sports that I'm involved in, and all these other things that I'm involved in. I just pass it along and talk positively about it as a positive. And I encourage that of my clients. As you elevate, start to pass it along, and things will just become even better and better for others. So that's the 3 E's in me.
Well, I tell you what, we got, Jim, first of all, thank you so much. We're going to get in the Q&A right now. And I've got several that have popped up here and all that. So here's the first one, which I think is something that we all think about when we think about franchising. It just, you know, here it is. It's from an anonymous person. Franchising just sounds so expensive. Can you talk about the financial piece of it, the cost of starting up a franchise? Good question. Sure. Logical question.
Great question. And trust me, whoever asked that question, I get that question very early on in the journey.
I think so.
And I said, don't worry about it. We'll cross that bridge. Let's talk about the possibilities and the options before we talk about it. But franchising is, the investment in franchising can be anywhere from as low as $30,000 to hundreds, if not millions of dollars. A McDonald's, you're going to be into the millions for a McDonald's. But there are a lot of franchise brands out there that you've got a franchise fee to pay and not much more. There's not a lot of equipment in some franchising. There's not a lot of inventory. There's maybe no brick and mortar to invest in. So, you know, you can get into franchising in many ways, in many sectors, in those 80 sectors that I talked about, for anything from 30,000 up to, as I said, large numbers. But, you know, a lot of times those large numbers are also have some, you know, incredible returns. But also some of those small number or those low investments can have a great return on your investment.
Yeah, I mean,
I
think, no, it does. I mean, with 4,200 options out there, and I think, you know, for this person hearing that there's a low of $30,000, which is, you know, honestly, these days to be able to get that from a bank or something, or even your, like you said, a 401k and all that stuff is pretty easy to do. And, but you got a lot of options, clearly. So no, appreciate that. Here's one from a guy, this guy I know very well. I won't say his name. Ex-quarterback for LSU, though, I'll say that much. And
Wow.
They could use you right now. That's all I'm going to say is they could use you coming back. As you examine the franchise flavors of these 4,200 plus options, what do you think is the minimum number of those or percentage of those that you would say describe a healthy franchise? It's a good, interesting question. Good question.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good handle on that. Of course, I don't study 4,200 franchises,
Right.
but I think something we didn't cover and I wanted to cover is that franchise brands have all different phases. They have an early phase, an emerging phase, a regional phase, a national phase, an iconic phase, and all within those phases,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
there's success and not such. There's some
Right.
iconic brands that end up failing, but when a franchise brand truly has the franchisee's best interest in mind while they're trying to put their vision together for the future, there's a lot of success. There's a lot of success. So even though our LSU quarterback, don't you get at least 1 year after Joe Burrows leaves that you have like a tailwind that like you suck him behind Joe Burrows and you automatically win 10 games?
Yeah.
I digress. But,
not this year.
Not this year. But no, that's a good question. There are a lot of successful franchise brands out there, and it takes a lot of time to study the brand once you
that's the key is do your homework.
But within any franchise brand, there are franchisees that are very, very successful with a franchise brand that's not so successful.
You know what?
And vice versa. There's some great franchise brands that have some franchisees that don't succeed very well. Now, I could go into another hour on why they don't succeed.
Well, I think in general, you think about what you said before is follow the model. Just follow it. Don't think you could outsmart it. It's proven time and time again. Have the discipline to follow it. And some people, don't want to do that. And they get into it and don't do it and probably it costs them. So, and let's see what time we got. We got time for a couple more here, Jim. This one is a pretty good question too. It's like, I know there's business brokers out there. Is there the same kind of franchise brokers, that would have like a list of potential franchise opportunities that I might be interested in that they can share with me? And would you make any recommendations on who those brokers are?
I do. Yes, there are. There's some really large brands.
That's a good question. Yeah.
They're either corporate owned or they're franchise owned. They're franchise brokers. One of the reasons I didn't choose to do that is due to the fact that franchise brokers are really, they're best suited for somebody who has done the research on themselves. They've really, really understood who they are and really have a focus in on really kind of the brand or the model they're looking for. I don't do that. I don't consider myself anywhere close to a franchise broker because I don't think about the end result. I don't talk about the end result. I talk about the individual. So it is a good question. There's many of them out there. Again, I think franchise brokerage is for those who have really, really have a great understanding of who they are, what they want to achieve, what their skill sets and abilities are, and they're just ready for getting served up some business opportunities.
Right. I'm going to go two more questions here, Jim, and then we'll wrap it up. This first one says, can you explain the royalty part of franchising and how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah, franchising, for the most part, franchising has some type of royalty up against gross revenues typically. Okay. I'm just talking in general. And most franchise brands will have a royalty of anywhere from 5% to maybe 10%. They may add a little bit more onto that to cover some additional marketing and technology fee or whatever. But technology fees are usually a set amount per month and is not a royalty. But royalties are typically just the ongoing brand expense for being a franchisee. So like I said, royalties run anywhere from probably the low end 5%, and that's the low I'd say the majority or the average would be somewhere between 8 and 10%.
Okay.
And
And kind of,
yeah, go
what you're getting in return is the marketing, potentially national marketing, advertising, right?
and all
Like you
those
said,
things that we talk about that they have to continue to
right,
evolve and work on and fine tune to
right.
make you a better franchisee.
And that even like, you mentioned in what you were doing with Midas, you were actually even going out and helping them. You're like a free consultant for not free.
Part of the royalty paid for the teams that are
Right,
out.
right, right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Nope.
Yep.
That's great. I'm going to actually do two more questions because there's a young person who asked a question, and we've got all kinds of people always every month on this thing. Sometimes we even got undergraduates that are interested in a particular subject and recent grads and all that. So I'm going to get to that young man or women. It's anonymous, so I'm not sure. But here's second to last question. Do you typically have an exclusive agreement for a particular territory or market? Is that negotiable or is it pretty much already set? That's a
Good
great question.
Awesome
Comes
question.
from Julie.
That's
Named
why I
Julie.
work with the young people, because there's some that are very entrepreneurial. So I have a group of clients that are young.
When you say young, what's your definition of young? Just out of curiosity.
A year younger than you.
Bless you.
Okay, Jim. Great question. Yes, some brands require a territory. Territories are, you take an iconic brand like McDonald's. You brought that up early.
Right.
They have the technology to really understand what is a market down to
Science.
down to a household on a street is considered. They know the household that will create enough demand and revenue for a market for an individual. Is it negotiable? It is. Probably more so with the early emerging or regional brands that are still growing. It's the opportunity to get in early and help them understand. Well, I don't think this territory is large enough. How about if we do a territory that encompasses this zip code and this zip code? So yeah, they can be negotiable, absolutely. And even with the national and iconic brands, they have the ability to be negotiable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And I know, what's that?
Is there a second part of that question?
Nope. That was it. Nope. You answered it. And here's the last question is, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give someone who is younger in their career? Again, I don't know how old this person is. It's anonymous. I'm going to assume 20s, late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. Greatest piece of advice. Just always be reading about opportunities, because as an experience right here, I spent 25 years of getting more and more tunnel vision. I thought I was seeing the world. I was getting older. I was having experiences. I had kids, but my world became very tunneled. My vision was tunneled and I didn't see it. So as I came out and became a career coach, I realized I'm missing huge chunks of this world and people and what they do and what they're doing to contribute back to mankind. So read a lot and open your mind. Take a different route from here to your favorite coffee shop. Take open a book that you've never read that subject ever before. Read articles in magazines and online that you've never read before, but open your mind to things beyond your focus. And I'm telling you, 25 years, the tunnel vision just came down on me.
Yeah. And another thing I would add to that is, and we're seeing this all the time with young people that we're serving now with working with universities and all that, is there's some wonderful assessments out there, as you know, Jim, to help you really understand yourself first, right? And one of the best ones that I think every human being should take this assessment if they haven't done, it's Strength Finders 2.0 by Gallup. It's the most popular assessment out there and all this. And what that'll tell you, this person who emailed that in, it's going to tell you your top 5 strengths. If you understand those, right, then you start seeking careers and things where you could use your strengths. And if you're using your strengths, you're going to enjoy your job and you're going to do well. If you're not, you won't. It's that simple. So I'd add on to what Jim's saying
Great
is get
point.
to know yourself well too, and that'll help steer you in the future also.
All my clients I give DISC to. So
Yeah.
Strength Finders
Another
DISC.
great
I love it.
Great
Love it.
assessment.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, well, first of all, Jim, I want to thank you for being a part of this. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this subject. I really did. And, I've asked you about franchises in the past too, and all that. And I got a lot out of this session. I know others did too. There's a few questions here that we did not get to. I know that. And somebody said they would love to see your bow tie collection. I got a comment on that as well. But thank you, Jim, for coming, and really appreciate it. And
Jim,
we'll follow up with everybody on email to make sure that we've got you covered, so to speak, on all the questions.
Thank you. This was a privilege and an honor to be with you.
Oh,
it
you're
was
welcome,
a privilege
Jim.
and honor to be with everybody that was on. I just encourage anybody that wants to touch base with Jim and his great company.
Oh,
and
thank you.
and
Absolutely.
the team behind you to put this together. What a wonderful team that is.
Yeah.
And again, reach out to me anytime. Jim, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And just for you guys know, we'll have our next webinar session the first Wednesday of every month, and that'll be in December. And we're going to get out to you next week who that's going to be, what the topic is. And as you're seeing with our topics, we've got a variety of topics, man. It is great. You've got everything from franchising to what you heard last month about, starting a business from scratch and all these kinds of things. And so we're going to keep bringing that as a service and added value, whether you're a client of ours or not. So we're very thankful to Jim and all those who have given us their time. And I would tell everybody, have a great evening